It's difficult to really drive home just how big Bionicle was for LEGO. Obviously the company had been around for decades and were incredibly successful, but whenever they introduced a new line of toys, it was just that, just some new toys. Now this is long before they were embracing every license under the sun. Each of LEGO's products was usually LEGO created, but in 2001 they decided to fully embrace this feeling of renaissance of a new millennium and threw everything they had at this new line. Not only did it have books and comic books, but it also really drove home this idea of being in the 21st century, so accompanied it with interactive websites, interactive CD-ROMs, CGI character origin stories, video games, and the list just goes on and on. LEGO wrote an entire mythology around these characters and their land, and created an ensemble that felt similar in the arrival of Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, each with their own colour, ability and weapons. Bionicle is set in the land of Mata Nui, not to be confused with Mata Nui, which is from Moana.
I am Moana of Motu Nui. I am Moana of Motu Nui. I am Moana of Motu Nui.
As the legend goes, before the beginning of time, the island of Mata Nui was a tropical paradise. Mata Nui was actually originally a spirit that was sent down from the heavens to care for all living things. But then a shadow of fear and darkness fell across the land. That shadow's name was Makuta. Makuta was Mata Nui's brother, who secretly followed him from paradise. He grew jealous of his brother and cast a spell over the island that put it into an endless sleep. In the dark years that followed, the islanders, or the Tohunga, put their faith in a legend that foresaw the arrival of 6 mighty heroes called the Toa. Makuta's spell weakened their powers, but they refused to bow to him, even when he created dark parts of the island where they dare not go. Only the Toa will have both the strength and bravery to bring peace and harmony to the world. But to fulfill their destiny, they must find the Kanohi masks of power. They must face countless obstacles and fierce competition, but their greatest test will be to bring an end to Makuta and the darkness. Now, obviously, the Bionicle story would get more and more complicated over time as they continued to introduce new lines of toys, and a new lore to go along with it too. So I'm not going to be going too deep into all that Bionicle has to offer, as honestly we could be here for days. Instead, I'm going to focus on the originals, the ones I knew best. And besides, the lore is deep enough as it is. So let's just start with the characters. We have the Tohunga, which are a small species of islander, and also the Turaga. The Turaga were supposedly originally Toa who gave up their powers. However, they're still able to access certain powers through the use of the Kanohi masks, although only certain masks. Each Tohunga village has a Turaga. The Turaga are the keepers of the legend of Mata Nui, each a protector of one of the Toa's legends, and each representing a specific elemental power. 6 Turaga for 6 Toa, and of course each one has their own backstory and personality as well. They can all be found in different regions of the island, also based on different elements. Again, we could fill a whole video just on the Tohunga and the Turaga, but we need to fast forward a little to get to the main heroes, the Toa. So let's just break them down. First we have Pahatu, the Toa of Stone. He's slow moving but incredibly strong. He can, quite literally, move mountains with his reinforced feet, but is terrified by water and sinks like a rock. Pun fully intended. Now he uses the Kanohi Kakama, the Great Mask of Speed, but one of the great quests of the Toa is to collect all the masks of power in their colour, essentially allowing them to access all of the mask's attached powers. We also have Anua, the Toa of Earth. He watches over land, both above and below it. Like a mole, his eyesight is very poor and is often seen tunnelling with his strengthened claws, and is in fact quicker underground than he is above it. He uses the Kanohi Pikari, the Great Mask of Strength. Gali, the Toa of Water, is the only female Toa. Using the Kanohi Kaukau, I think that's how it's pronounced, she's able to breathe underwater, but can also use her hooks for climbing too. But of course, again, each of the Toa has their own version of the Kanoi Cow that they must collect. Tahu, the Toa of Fire, supposedly has a short temper, or hot-headed, I suppose, again, pun intended, and is also quick to violence. He uses the Kanoi Hau, the Great Mask of Shielding, which protects from overhead attacks and falling objects. He wields a flame sword and is capable of surfing lava. Then there's Liwa, the Toa of Air, who uses the Kanoi Miru, the Great Mask of Levitation that allows the user to glide and float through the jungle. And finally, Kopaka, the Toa of Ice. His sword will slice through just about anything and can also turn anything to ice. He uses the Kanoi Akaku, the Great Mask of X-ray vision, which grants the ability to see through solid objects. Only when all of the Great Masks of Power have been found will the Toa be ready to fulfill their destiny. Together they will challenge Makuta and restore Mata Nui to its former glory. The 6 Toa heroes wash ashore in 6 Toa canisters and build themselves back up to start their search for the masks. In time, 3 Toa can combine, almost like forming a Megazord I guess, to form stronger Toa Kaita. And as time went by, more and more elements were added to the legend of the Toa and Mata Nui. New powers, new allies, new enemies, and new toys. This story would be strengthened even further when LEGO introduced a Bionicle comic book to accompany the new line of toys, which allowed even deeper exploration of the lore. Although LEGO did have to retcon certain aspects because they were accused of misappropriating use of the Maori language, so certain things had to be renamed and restyled. But there was reason behind all of this lore, because Bionicle was one of the first LEGO toy lines, and I guess any toy line, to really embrace all new technologies in order to enhance the story behind its product. Obviously we'd seen the 80s and 90s cartoons that were fully invested into selling us toys, but this was 2001 and there were new ways of reaching potential customers, namely CD-ROMs. Not just video games, but computer-generated comics and also the internet. Not that it stopped there, of course. There were the video games, the comics, the books. Hell, I even remember going to Legoland Bionicle-themed fireworks displays. But initially there was some hesitance from retailers, because LEGO was not a story-backed product. It was a construction toy in which the user made up their own world and story. A tradition that LEGO has tried to remind us of in the LEGO movies, before doing a whole load of other movies based on other franchises, that is. But it worked. It was a massive success and the jumping off point for lines of toys such as Chima, Hero Factory and Ninjago. The impact this had on the LEGO brand is huge, even though the series itself got more and more stale over time. But last summer, while we were just coming out of the COVID lockdown, I took advantage of people doing some spring cleaning and bought in some cheap toy bundles in order to pick out a load of Bionicle spares and build up a bit of a collection. Actually, quite a large collection as it turns out. And as such, you can join me in a very special Retro Wednesdays where we go through what I managed to pick up in order to see what we're able to build. So let's go back to 2001 and see if we can get ourselves a few of the sets together. But until then, I will see you next time.